you stand up for yourself. You have to be clear and grounded and know that you can trust yourself. If your body and your intuition is telling you something, you are absolutely correct. Fear is lack of correct information. So if you feel fear, go get information. Don't let anxiety creep in.
Hello and welcome to the Stroke It podcast. I'm Jenny Townsend, your host. I'm so excited for today's podcast. We are going to be talking about heart-centered consciousness, and you're going to be learning so many tools and ways of thinking and how to interact and just grow and thrive and live completely freely. My guest, Dr. Alina, and I just reconnected just a few weeks ago at my friend Bia's house at a girls' night out, and we just instantly connected as well. And I loved her philosophy, and I was like, you need to come share this knowledge with my listeners. So I'm super excited to have her here. She is a thriver, a heart-centered expansion expert, and a visionary who leads by example, showing and guiding individuals and organizations how to expand their consciousness beyond any limits to achieve success. She makes the impossible happen with ease through heart-centered consciousness. She is fluent in 6 languages and conducts business, all of them regularly. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Jenny, and thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to connect with your audience and share a little bit of what I have learned for myself, and how to truly be and live free without stress, without any anxiety, and to be able to manage life and enjoy life fully. So thank you again.
I love it. So first of all, before we get started, I would love to know what inspired you to do this work and what season of life are you in right now?
Well, that's interesting. I would call myself in my midlife. I'm 54 years old. I just turned 54. And I find myself in a really good place in life. I have learned a lot. And I feel that what I have learned, so many people would benefit, because I observe around me a lot of people living in stress. And I see a lot of unnecessary suffering. That is really something that we can manage, and we can really overcome, and we can thrive. And the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is that originally I was trained as a chemical and biomedical engineer. I have a PhD in both. I studied cell science, and I worked with cells under the microscope for about 20 some years. And I observed under the microscope behavior in cells that indicates consciousness. And that consciousness, it's clarity, it's happiness. We call happy, healthy cells, and cells that are get together, they group, they form colonies. And we are humans, we're made up of trillions of cells. So in your experience, what do happy humans do? We get together, we connect, we're joyous, we smile. Well, it's the same thing for our cells. And I have learned a lot from working with cells under a microscope. And it really translates into having this consciousness that's not a mental process. I really teach how to get out of our heads into our bodies, specifically into our hearts. That's what the real intelligence is, and how to trust ourselves and how to access our intuition. And I can tell you what that is later. And how to really trust that what we feel is correct for us. And by trusting ourselves, we can have better relationships with others, with our family members, with our coworkers, with our teams, with our children, and the world around us. And I believe that's what life is all about: to be authentic, to be empowered, to live in joy.
Right. And as you're naming all of those people and the people in your lives, most importantly, probably just help yourself, which
exactly,
it begins with us as well. Well, it's so beautiful, and I'm looking forward, because as you're saying, you're like this, I'm like, yes, a lot of us are stressed. Yes, a lot of us are like operating with our mind and not our hearts. And that's such a challenge to get to that place as well. A lot of times, well, my experience has been like something tragic has happened to where you finally get there, and you have the time for the self-reflection, you start thinking differently and you start using your heart versus just your mind, where you want to control everything and you want to make all the decisions and you want to prevent all the disaster and all that. So I'm excited for you to share some of this knowledge with our listeners. So when you're going through this process, who are you primarily working with? Like, what are the ages or what is the demographics of the individuals that are coming to you that are seeking this support and help?
So far, I have worked because I have worked as a business consultant for over 15 years before I started doing this work. And this work of coaching heart-centered consciousness kind of sprouted organically from my business work. I came into contact with a lot of executives that were and entrepreneurs, myself being a serial entrepreneur, that have different challenges. They experience extreme stress. They experience as a result of that anxiety. They do not have charge of their own emotions, and they're just running amok. And some of them start taking medications that negatively impact their relationships and their lives, to the point where people would end up in divorce situations or really stressful family and work situations. So I observed that, and people that I work with in the business world ask me, well, how do you flow? How do you flow with stress? How do you flow with anxiety? How come you don't have those? And I said, look, I used to have those too. I used to have extreme bouts of anxiety. I used to work in U.S. defense many years ago. And I can tell you, I experienced immense anxiety because of all the pressures of my work. And I did not have the tools on managing that. And I learned to listen to my heart, and I learned to go inside. I learned this introspection. And that's what I really teach, because in becoming heart-centered conscious and in basically escaping all of this current stresses from society, the stress, the anxiety, pressures, really the first step is to stop and to examine where we are, to take a deep breath. And I teach that in my classes and in my coaching, how to do that, how to tap into your intuition, which is nothing more than your own innate ability to discern what is correct for you, not for anybody else, for you first. And use that intuition to, first, I teach you how to recognize it. Second of all, how to engage with it, how to flow with it, and how to take action based on that, and how to realize that you are not a broken human being, that you are not separated from yourself. And unfortunately, we've been taught since we are kids about all the separation programs. We're taught profiles, behaviors, roles, and we're taught to fit in a society, but we're not taught to listen to ourselves first and give to ourselves. And that's the most important thing that we all have access to. So what I really discovered for myself is that all the troubles I was experiencing, all the stress, all the anxiety, the solution was within me. And Jenny, I spent over $200,000 on personal coaching, business coaching, life coaching, personal transformation, self-help books. I've read most of the books that are out there, and I have gone to training by experts and all these gurus. And everything that I have learned from them was just to take the edge off for a while. And I realized there has to be something more. And that something more comes in when we listen to our heart. Because the real intelligence is, and as a scientist, as an engineer, I've studied medical courses when I was in graduate school, and there is an incredible connection between our feelings and what we feel in our body and the results that we see in our life. And I discovered that it's important to embody, to stay in our bodies, because our bodies have the answer and they teach us. If we have a pain in our body, I will teach you how to recognize that and what it means to you, not to somebody else. And I teach discernment. What does it mean to discern? To see that something is correct for you, how to read the situation accurately, how to read the room accurately. So those are things that are applicable in your work situations. How to be engaged in a collaborative way with your children, with your family, with your coworkers, with everybody in society. Imagine a society where we are heart-centered conscious and we interact from a place of love from our heart with everybody else. We're not judgmental. We can surpass all of that when we realize we're not separated from ourselves. And that's the most important part. I'm really passionate about it because I've seen results with my friends, with my coworkers, if you will, individuals that I have worked with in business situations. And, it's pretty incredible.
It sounds incredible. I'm being very much inspired by you right now. So I want to go back to when you were talking about the intuition, because I think we all have intuition. Why do you think that many of us disregard our intuition or don't listen to our intuition?
I feel it's because of how we've been taught in society. Do you remember going to school, in first grade, let's say, has the teacher ever taught you to listen to yourself or what we say you listen to your gut feeling. They make it sound like intuition is some sort of supernatural phenomena that some of us have access to and some of us don't. And that's incorrect. And the sad part is that when you start becoming aware, you realize that what we've been taught is incorrect. We are not separated from ourselves. We are a whole being. And as a scientist and as an engineer, I can tell you that science and technology disciplines are separation programs. Why do you think we have, chemistry, biology, physics? They are all separated sciences because that's an attempt to understand human being and human lives. But we are, we're one being. We're not spiritual, we're not physical. We are one being. We function as a whole. And intuition is our innate ability to discern what's correct for us. And I teach how to really connect, how to listen, and how to recognize intuition. And I start with, one of my first teachers was a friend of mine. I'm originally from Romania, by the way. She's also originally from Romania. Her name is Sonia Choquet. She's a well-known international best-selling author, and she teaches intuition. And I learned how to discern my intuition. I always felt I was intuitive since I was a kid. And to the point where I've had people call me, oh, you must be a witch to know all of this. And that's, that's inaccurate,
Right.
That's,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
That's basically a way of discounting somebody, and that's not correct because we all have access to that. So I really teach you, for example, how do you know your intuition? If you say things that's a truth. For example, you say, I'm a woman. Where do you feel that in your body? So I teach those processes to show you how you are correct on your intuition and then how to recognize it. And it's just it's a feeling. And it's something very light that you learn how to recognize and trust. And once you trust, you have to stay in your body with it, not go in your head and start analyzing and processing it. Because that's when we get into trouble. When we think too much, we analyze things too much with our head. We tap into our belief systems and beliefs that were implanted in us, that were taught to us, that may not even be ours. And our body keeps the score and tells us, what's correct or not.
Right. So I'm listening to you and I'm like, yes. So does this come down to just being more self-aware as well?
Yes.
Because I feel that sometimes people just aren't aware of who they even are to begin with. So how can they understand their instincts in their gut or who they want to be and start listening to these things if they're just not even themselves because they're living somebody else's life or they're trying to be somebody else that everybody else wanted them to be? So how do you get them to the mental state to where they can actually start to work in this capacity or start to believe the things that you're telling them to so that they can make the changes? Because I feel like some people probably have a lot of barriers when you start to talk about all these things. So how are you breaking those barriers and getting them into that, I don't want to say mindset, but how are you getting them there where they start to embrace this?
Yes, it's actually not a mindset, it's a beingness. It's a paradigm shift what I teach, because I discovered that what I teach nobody else teaches. It's really this embodiment. You stay in your body, and I start with vocabulary. You have to stop when you're experiencing stress, anxiety, you have to take a break and disconnect. Even if you're in meetings, I've had to do this in meetings. I excuse myself. I said, excuse me, bio break, I have to go to the bathroom. So I disconnect myself and I go to the bathroom, or in a place where it's quiet, so I can feel myself and feel my heart and my body. And I connect to myself and I just listen. It's this staying quiet, disconnecting. I don't watch that many news. I don't stay on social media all day, although I'm there, but I'm not. So I disconnect. But what I teach is really a new vocabulary, because most people are functioning in victim mode without even realizing it. We have been taught to be victims, and we don't even process it or think it or realize it. But we are using words that are victim words, and all words are charged with energy. So we are energy. And people may not realize that, but we are energy in a body. We have a body and we're energetic. Have you ever walked into a room and you have an instant liking or dislike towards somebody?
Yes.
Okay, that was your energy. We have this energy field that's so expansive that actually precedes us when we walk into a room, and so does everybody else. So before you even have a chance to introduce yourself to somebody or meet them, your energy speaks. So that's where you have that instant attraction or kind of repulsion.
Yeah. So speaking of energy, so I think around like 2 or 3 years ago, I went into my office and I had some team members, Kaylee, who actually works on my podcast, who you were connecting with. She helps me with producing this. And then I had this other gentleman named Tom, and they both worked with me for several years. And that morning, my husband was like, your energy is just so off and negative. And I was like, oh, whatever. So I go to work. And I walk in and I was like, oh my God, my husband was telling me how strong my energy is. And I'm like joking about this, like not believing it. And they both looked at each other and they're like, yeah, we know. We can tell what kind of day it's going to be or what we can expect or how the day is going to go based on when you walk in. Even if you're smiling, we can sense the energy if you're not really happy, even though you're smiling. And my studio manager who runs my studio now has very strong energy, and her energy ripples throughout our entire organization. So I'm always reminding her, hey, we really need to be in a good mindset when you come into, or like be leading with your heart, or, make sure you're doing your meditating and you're working through all the things that you need to work with before you come, because her energy is so strong. And usually when I'm interviewing people, I just got off the phone with a guy I was interviewing to bring on to our team. And, he's like, okay, so are we good to go? I go, I'm not hiring you until I meet you in person. I can touch you. I can feel your energy and I can look you in the eyes, buddy. And it's so true when it comes to energy, because some people have really great energy and some people, not so good energy. I've been wearing a lot of crystals lately.
We all have amazing energy, Jenny. It's a matter of the energy being blocked. And when you're heart-centered conscious, you truly realize your own energy. So you're able to refocus, recalibrate inside yourself before you start interacting with others. You can clear your mind. There are certain techniques that you can do to balance your energy, to have this heart and brain coherence, which means that your heart and your brain function in sync. So that's what I really do. I give you tools.
Can you give us a tip or a tool to help us with balancing that energy? Like, I don't know if you can do it online or not, but could you give us?
I can show you a really quick way to get calm, and how, for example, if you can't sleep at night, if you have a hard time falling asleep, try this. Ideally you lay down in bed or on a flat surface on a yoga mat, and nothing under your head, no pillow, just lay down and stay relaxed. You put your feet like this, and your hands, you cross your hands over your chest, and then I'll tell you how it goes, and then I'll explain what it is, because there's no mystery. We have energy flowing in our body. On the left side of our body is our female energy, no gender involved. On the right side, we have male energy. Male energy is the action, the going, the doing. Female energy is connected to the right side of the brain, the creative side. So it's more the receiving, the soft energy, the creative energy. And when we have this male and female energy, if you will, in different philosophies, the yin and the yang, when we have this imbalance, we can flow. We're connected. We're at peace. So I'm not sure if you know what diaphragmatic breathing is, but that means the diaphragm, which is just below your chest, you breathe in through your nose and you expand your stomach. So that's when the diaphragm really expands. That's a diaphragmatic breathing. And don't worry if you look pretty or your stomach goes blown up, but that's diaphragmatic breathing. And it really causes this relaxation in your body. So when you cross your fingers, you do a finger here, and you grab your cheeks, but you don't grab them very hard. You just do it lightly and you breathe. And observe what happens to my hands. Do you notice my hands are dropping down my chest, and they're dropping in a natural way? I have worked with clients that they would have to breathe for 15 minutes or more until their hands start dropping on their chest naturally. And that tells me they're in their heads, they're thinking, they're analyzing, they're not feeling. And that's why they're experiencing anguish, stress, anxiety, because those are mental processes. Those are processed through our egos. Our egos are really in control of us. And I teach you what's the difference between control and charge. So I teach you how to change your vocabulary. So this is a technique that you can use. For example, you're in a stressful meeting, you can excuse yourself, ask for a bio break, and go somewhere, and you can do this. It doesn't take that long. When you practice it, I do it every morning when I wake up, and I do it every evening before I go to bed. And then if I'm experiencing some sort of stress during the day, I excuse myself and I do this somewhere in a quiet place, even sitting down or standing up. It allows you to connect to yourself, to have this brain and heart coherence so you can function together, not separated.
Okay. And then like the crossing of the hands, is that because you're like crossing
you're basically connecting. So basically I'm connecting my right arm to my left side. So basically I'm connecting my male and my female energy in my body. So I do this. And be patient with yourself. Give yourself a chance because it may take some time. But
I'm going to give this to my husband tonight. Do you have like a little video on that, like a YouTube video or on your Instagram?
I don't, but it's something that I'm actually working on to put together some videos. Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be pretty. I mean, obviously you're beautiful, but I'm saying just to get that out there to where people could utilize that. I did want to ask you something else too when you're talking about the feminine and the masculine as well. And I think for women like myself, I feel like when we are entrepreneurs, when we are the leaders, when we have to be the boss, when we have to be on all the time, we're very much in that masculine energy, and we're in that masculine energy a lot. And I know like several years ago when I was going through my like recovery stage and like going through a lot of self-awareness and counseling and doing a lot of energy work as well, I really had to get in tuned with the feminine side of my energy. And I feel like I have embraced it so much, and I'm so grateful that I found that. And I have a really nice balance now. Sometimes I think I'm actually a little bit too feminine now versus that.
Fantastic.
But if we have some viewers on that maybe are, some women that are really high on the masculine energy, how could we encourage them, or what are some tools or some tips that you can get to where they can like lean in and channel more of that feminine energy?
It really starts with becoming connected to yourself and listening. Really do this introspection and awareness where you are in a beautiful place and nature works really well. I like the beach. I like the woods. I like to go in a park where there's maybe not too many people. I sit on a bench by a tree, or I go and I just do a yoga pose or just sit on grass or a stone or a rock. It's just this introspection, and it's a process. It's not something, look, I did not discover this for myself in one day. I thought I was a really fast learner, but not when it comes to my own processing my own emotions and feelings. So it takes observation, it takes quiet time, and it takes knowing and telling yourself you are your own support. And what I really say to everybody is, don't trust a word of what I'm telling you. Verify it through your own experience. Don't do something because I teach you. Verify it for yourself. Does it make sense for you? I may teach you something, but it may not resonate with you. And that's really important. It's important to realize that whatever you feel, whatever each one of us feels, it's authentic to us and it's perfect, because that's what makes us unique. And we cannot compare ourselves to others. We are our own powerhouses.
Our own beings as well.
Exactly.
Have you heard of the book or the podcast Mel Robbins, The Let Them Theory?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I'm listening to that right now, and there's so much of that I'm just like, just let it. And then she has a whole chapter on like comparison and like the negatives of comparison, but then the positives of the comparison as well. And I think a lot of times, we do compare ourselves to other people and we're so wanting to become something else than like accepting who we are and appreciating our uniqueness and like really just leaning into the strengths that we have and our own personals. And I know that, there's some gifts that I have that other people wish they had. And I know that they have some gifts that I wish I had, but it's just because I don't have them doesn't mean I can't work towards those gifts, or learn from that person and connect with that person as well. But I do feel that we are at a stage where, a lot of people are really hard on themselves and they don't believe in themselves. Then they just don't want to be who they are. And I find it kind of sad at sometimes. So I love what you're speaking about and people becoming more in tune with who they are and accepting that.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to be authentic, to be truly authentic, because life, it's about being authentic. And I feel there are not enough people on the planet who are authentic, who are their own leaders. It's important that we start becoming our own leaders. And really, it's really so empowering when you connect with another person it's their own leader. And that means they're open to collaborating, to interacting in a way that's beneficial to both people or to more than one person. Really, I feel, you look at social influencers. Why do people listen to them? Because they're authentic. They have this innate authenticity. Sometimes it may be outrageous. Sometimes it's just well balanced. It really depends. But it's that authenticity. And I feel that we have gotten to a point where we're following so much what we feel is the norm that we forget who we really are. And that's what causes a lot of anguish and stress. That's unnecessary.
Yeah. And I think too, it comes with like parenting as well, where, I work with a lot of families as well. And obviously I grew up in a family and my husband did too as well. But I also think too, some of that comes from our parents, our teachers, and our mentors from a young age when we wanted to become something and we had that confidence and we had that belief and we had those desires. And for whatever reason, those individuals redirected us, told us we couldn't do that, we wouldn't be good at that. They redirected so much stuff where then they had to become, or we had to become someone else to live up to those expectations or to follow their dreams or their desires for us, be it versus just being who we truly are point in time and living out that unique, authentic person. So if we had any parents that were listening today or any mentors or teachers or coaches, and they are working with the young generation, what would be your advice to them to encourage them to remain unique and be authentic to them versus these individuals trying to change the landscape or the future of that individual?
I feel it's so important to listen to our kids, to listen to what's their authentic, what's their being telling you. Observe them, observe their talents, observe their gifts, and assist them to emphasize those. And look, we all have parents that they did the best they could with what they knew and what didn't know. So nobody is guilty of anything. It doesn't make any sense to say, oh, we blame our parents or I don't want to. They did the best they could with what they knew because they also had parents and maybe they were taught disempowering beliefs and they figure out how to function in society. I think the goal of a parent is to make sure that their child does well in life and has a good life, but then they believe that has to be in a certain matrix. Well, I teach that there are no matrices. We are so expansive. And the power that we have is in what a lot of psychologists call the shadows. And those are the unrecognized parts of ourselves that we kind of deny. We deny we have or we wish we had. And we don't allow those to come to the surface. And if you observe your life and you observe your own experiences, you will definitely realize that those things that you keep hidden from yourself even, are the ones that if you actually have the courage to put into light and to put to use and to take action on them, that will give you your success. That will give you joy. That would make you feel at ease with yourself. Because you don't have to pretend anything. And it really doesn't matter because it doesn't matter to others. It matters because when you're authentic, others feel your energy. And that is really, really empowering. It's about us realizing that the children that we teach, the children that we have around us in our families, they're precious. They're here to teach us something new, and they're here and they require our support and to be who they're here to be, and not to be somebody that we think they should be.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what leads to a lot of anxiety, and that leads to a lot of depression and unhappiness, and that leads to a lot of health problems as well. So with that, I wanted you to share the story that you had told me about as well, about how this heart-centered consciousness and way of living has helped people move through health challenges.
Sure. I can share an example of a really dear friend of mine. She is an attorney and she has been working in the financial sector for many years. Really incredibly intelligent and capable woman. And I had been out of touch with her for about a year, and she called me last March to basically say goodbye, that she's dying. She called me from the hospital, and I said, what do you mean? What do you mean you're dying? And she said, I have kidney failure, and the doctors have no idea why my kidneys are failing. And I just wanted to call and say goodbye and tell you that, I really valued our friendship and I don't know what to do because I'm on a kidney registry and there's no kidney available, so I'll likely die. That's what the doctor said. So I literally got in my car and drove 500 miles to the hospital where she was, because I just could not believe that a 45-year-old woman is dying of kidney failure that's not diagnosed. There's no reason why she's experiencing kidney failure. And I knew it has to do with some trauma, emotional trauma that she experienced over a period of time that is causing this havoc in her body. So I literally drove there and I started telling her what I know. And I started teaching her a new vocabulary. She had very disempowering victim type words that are very draining on the body. So I taught her how to change her vocabulary. We actually practice vocabulary. It's like learning a new language. And I guided her and I shared how important it is to have this introspection, to look at trauma and what she believes, and to ask herself, is this something you believe or it's something that somebody transferred to you as a belief system? And does it make sense for you? And I teach you, if it doesn't make sense of you, then discard it. It doesn't serve you any purpose. Just let it go. So I teach how to let go, and really letting go is just moving forward. There's nothing that you have to do. So that's one example. Now she is doing amazingly well. The doctors have no idea why her kidneys are functioning normally, but she is really well. She's out of the hospital and she's living a full life and has a new relationship. She met a new man in her life, and she's happy and enjoy and lives every day enjoying it.
That's amazing. Well, I want to second what you're saying about the trauma and storing emotions in your body. When
Mm-hmm.
my husband and I were going through a rough patch back in 2018, I stored everything within, and I ended up with shingles, and I had shingles all down my neck, and it was like all over. It was just really, really painful, and it was really, really bad. And then I then developed this nerve pain. I forget what it's called, but basically it's a post something nerve where I was like, if I started to feel overwhelmed or I started to feel sad or I felt attacked or if I was emotional, basically I would have this nerve pain because it was all the inflammation and everything that was happening to me. And then because it was all on this right side, then my arm started to be I couldn't lift my arm. I couldn't move. I was in so much pain. I couldn't even sleep on the right side. And that's because I was storing all this emotion in my
Mm-hmm.
body. And I believe that some of my tennis elbow that I've had and I haven't been able to play tennis because of was because there was still a little bit in there as well. And I thought it would be released after I released my book. I was like, it's finally going to be released, but it was still in there. So I definitely believe that if you have trauma or emotions and you're storing it with your body, it will start to take over your body. And I only learned about all of this when I was going through that, when I had a surgery and it wouldn't heal as well, kind of around the same time. And I went to infectious disease doctor. I went to allergy specialist. I was like something is wrong with me. And I went to an acupuncturist and she started talking with me and she was like, we got to fix up here. That's your problem. We got to fix your mind and your mindset and just your way of thinking and how you're processing this. So we did, I think it was kinesiology a little bit to kind of release a lot of those emotions and then getting back into the heart center. And then I did a lot of other healing as well. But, that emotional trauma can really, really damage your body.
Absolutely. And that's what I teach. I teach individuals how to become non-emotional observers in their own lives. And I teach what is the distinction, and this is very important, between emotions and feelings, because emotions are connected to our brain, which is connected to our ego, which is connected to all these false beliefs that we have that do not serve us. So I teach you how to become non-emotional and how to start feeling, but you feel in your body. You don't feel in your head. Intuition is in your heart and your body. It's not in your head. People think about consciousness as a mental process. It is not. It is not. Consciousness, it's a whole being. It starts in your heart. And that's what I teach, because it really empowers people how not to get into trauma and let trauma affect them, because you are detached from these emotions and you observe yourself. You become very observant, very introspective. And that's a process. And that's really important to becoming free. It's really, really important. But yes, those emotions trigger all
Yeah,
kinds
for
of health
sure.
issues.
I believe in everything that you're saying. If you could give us a couple tips to start reducing or enhancing our energy or letting some of this stuff go and releasing it or stepping outside, as you're saying, and above yourself. Can you give us just some of the tools that you're giving to your clients, like one or two things where we can kind of implement those today that would be super beneficial to where we can start leading with our heart? Because I feel like for I'm closer to what you're talking about because I've been through a lot and had to process a lot as well. But those that haven't become acceptant of it, or they're not really as self-aware as maybe we would want them to be, to where they can get to this being, can you give us a couple tools of how we can start moving towards that direction, to where we could seek you and we could be reaching out to you where it would be able to help us? I just want to break those
Sure.
barriers and get them moving forward.
Sure. What I would say to the audience, to everybody that may be listening to this podcast, number one is clarity. Become clear. It's like washing your face with cold water and you're refreshed. Know that your energy is yours and energy is expensive. You don't have less energy, more energy. Your energy is. It's always there. It's always on. If you feel a little off, you may be tired, some sleep. Take a nap, drink lots of water, connect in nature, disconnect from electronics and TV and news, and do the breathing exercise that I showed you. It really works. And the other thing I would say, there are certain words that are very detrimental, very needy, very victim mode. The word needs. Please replace it with require. So when you say the word I need, it's like blah. But when you say require, it's grounded, it's solid. You get in that superwoman pose. You stand feet shoulder apart and you put your hands on your shoulders and just say, I am in my own power. And you stand up for yourself. You have to be clear and grounded and know that you can trust yourself. If your body and your intuition is telling you something, you are absolutely correct. Fear is lack of correct information. So if you feel fear, go get information. Don't let anxiety creep in. And anxiety, it's really, you have unrealistic expectations about something or somebody in your life. So if you feel anxious, ask yourself, what am I unrealistic about? And if you want to get more information, I invite you to connect with me. My website is Conscious Human Expansion. Give me a call. Schedule a 15-minute free consultation. I offer bookings on my website, and connect with me on my website. I have a blog with articles that I publish, and let's talk. Let's see if Heart Center Consciousness Expansion is something that would benefit you. So I look forward to connecting with you. And if you have any questions, please do connect via my website. And I'm also on Instagram and on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And we'll have all of that information too in the show notes as well. Another thing that I'm thinking about that would be so great. I don't know if you have this download created, if you or a video in the future, but like those vocabulary words. I know you've mentioned vocabulary several times as well. So maybe you have like 5 vocabulary words that we all use on a regular basis, and what we can replace those with. You know, like I used to say I have to. Now I get to, right? Or now I'm going to be using I require. So I would love, some of those in the future to understand those. So I think those could be super powerful. I had this young lady that worked for me. Well, she worked for me for 6 weeks or 6 years. I actually had to terminate her this past Monday. And she did a great job while she was there. It just came to, we needed to part ways. But she would always say that words matter. And it's so, and I always, we would joke about it because I would always say things and she'd be like, words. But the words really do matter. And I mean, obviously you're just saying that right now with changing our vocabulary and how powerful that can be for ourselves and for the relationships that we have. So I think it's beautiful. And I want to say thank you for sharing all of that with us. And if you are interested in getting in touch with Dr. Alina, definitely click on her website. She has a lot of great value and she's just a beautiful soul. And I've enjoyed the conversation with you. Thank you for being a guest.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I really value this conversation, and thank you for having me on your podcast.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we want to have you consider 5 individuals that you think may benefit or could utilize the skills that Dr. Alina shared with us today. You can just go ahead and click share this with some of your friends. I encourage you to text it or share it on your social media. We always love reviews. We want to know that the conversations that we are having are valuable and you appreciate them. So consider giving a 5-star review as well. We're wishing you a great day and looking forward to having you on the next podcast.